discounting and compounding factors of annuity using tables. We have discussed in detail that how can we calculate the future value of an annuity or its present value. Similarly, we have also talked about the calculation of future values and present values of annuity dues, and then we furthered these discussions to perpetuities. Now let's have a look at the tables which are called the future and present value tables of annuities. If you remember, we talked about similar tables when we were discussing the present and future values of single amounts. वहाँ पर भी हमने ये बात डिस्कस की थी कि ये जो टेबल्स हमारे पास प्रेजेंट या फ्यूचर वैल्यू के होते हैं, इनका असल मकसद हमारी कैलकुलेशंस को सिंप्लीफाई करना और टाइम को सेव करना है. यानी इन टेबल्स में दी जाने वाली वैल्यूज़ वही वैल्यूज़ हैं जिनको हम कैलकुलेटर के ज़रिए से कैलकुलेट कर सकते हैं. What has been done is that these calculated values are put together in the form of a table so that we just pick up the relevant value of the factor and multiply it by the amount to get the future value or the present value. Let's begin with an example of the future value of an ordinary annuity using the table. We may use the future value interest factor of an annuity table to calculate the future value, which reduces our calculation. Here it is important to mention that while using the tables, students are advised to have a look at the table. For example, this is annuity future value table. If A is not here, then future value interest factor table is only for a single amount. If rupees 5,000 are paid at the end of every year for 4 years, what will be the future value given that 2% per annum interest rate is paid? Now, to solve this problem, what we can do is apply the formula of future value interest of factor of an annuity and then get the future value. Or we can simplify our calculation by using this table. You see that in this problem, we have got the value of n equal to 4, that is there are 4 years, and the value of r, that is rate of interest, is 2%. So below 2%, in front of 4 years, we have got a value in red color that is 4.122. This is actually the solution calculated for us and put in this table for our ease. Now what we need to do is simply multiply this amount 4.122 with the amount of installment, and very easily we get the future value of this annuity. So to use the table, what we need to do is to see below the rate of interest which is given to us and in front of the number of years in order to get the right value to be multiplied by the amount of installment. For example, if rate of interest is 5% and n is equal to 3, then below 5% in front of 3 we have got a value which is 3.153. So all we need to do is then to multiply this with the amount of installment to get the future value. Continuing this, we can also calculate the present values of an annuity by using the table. Like the future value of an ordinary annuity, we can also use these tables to calculate the present values of ordinary annuities. And if you have a look at this table, this is somewhat similar to or very much similar to the future value interest factor table, except that the values in this table are less than the values in the future value table. And the reason is obvious, that in future value we have amounts which are greater than the present values, and in present values we have amounts less than the future values, so these amounts are smaller. Now, let's have a look at this example where we have got 7,000 rupees installment which are paid at the end of every year, which means it is an ordinary annuity for 5 years. What will be the present value given that 3% per annum interest rate is paid? So what we need to do is to look for the value of the factor at 3% rate of interest and for a period of 5 years. So if we see that it is 4.580. So what we do is we simply multiply this 4.580 with 7,000 in order to get the present value of this annuity. Similarly, using the table, we can calculate any present value of any installment considering the rate of interest and the number of years. For example, if interest rate is 5% and the number of years or installments are 2, then this is the value that we'll use to multiply and get the present value. Like ordinary annuity, the same tables, that is present value interest factor of an annuity and future value interest factor of an annuity, यानी यही दो टेबल्स जो कि हम ऑर्डिनरी एन्युटी के लिए यूज़ करते हैं, इन्हीं टेबल्स को यूज़ करके हम एन्युटी ड्यू की फ्यूचर वैल्यू और प्रेजेंट वैल्यू को भी डिटरमिन कर सकते हैं. ये बात हमने पहले डिस्कस की थी कि फ्यूचर वैल्यू ऑफ एन एन्युटी ड्यू फार्मूला जो है उसमें सिर्फ फ़र्क ये है कि हम फ्यूचर वैल्यू इंटरेस्ट फैक्टर ऑफ एन एन्युटी को आखिर में 1+r से मल्टीप्लाई करते हैं. तो जो बाकी हिस्सा है वो वही है जो कि फ्यूचर वैल्यू इंटरेस्ट फैक्टर ऑफ एन ऑर्डिनरी एन्युटी का है. और इसी तरीके से जब हम प्रेजेंट वैल्यू ऑफ एन्युटी ड्यू निकालते हैं तो उसके अंदर हम n की वैल्यू को 1 से रिड्यूस कर देते हैं, यानी वो रिड्यूस्ड फैक्टर भी प्रेजेंट वैल्यू इंटरेस्ट फैक्टर ऑफ एन ऑर्डिनरी एन्युटी ही होता है. और आखिर में हम उसके अंदर अमाउंट ऑफ इंस्टॉलमेंट को ऐड कर देते हैं, एक अमाउंट ऑफ इंस्टॉलमेंट जो कि साल के या महीने के शुरू में पे की जाती है. सो दिस मीन्स कि हमारे पास वही टेबल्स जो कि फ्यूचर वैल्यू ऑफ एन्युटी और प्रेजेंट वैल्यू ऑफ एन्युटी के लिए इस्तेमाल किए जाते हैं, वही टेबल्स हम एन्युटी ड्यू के लिए भी इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. To calculate the future value, we need to multiply the future value interest factor of an annuity with 1+r. इससे हमारी हर वैल्यू जो है वो एक साल के लिए ज़्यादा कंपाउंड हो जाएगी. And in present value, we need to take the value of n-1 and add the amount of installment r and its value, यानी हम number of installments को 1 से कम कर देते हैं और उन बाकी इंस्टॉलमेंट्स की प्रेजेंट वैल्यू निकालने के बाद और उसके अंदर फर्स्ट इंस्टॉलमेंट को ऐड कर सकते हैं. ये टेबल्स उसी तरह काम करेंगे, यानी 4% अगर इंटरेस्ट रेट है और 4 इयर्स है तो ये इंस्टॉलमेंट की अमाउंट इससे मल्टीप्लाई होगी. इसी तरह 5% इंटरेस्ट है और 5 इंस्टॉलमेंट्स हैं तो ये अमाउंट हमारी यूज़ होगी प्रेजेंट वैल्यू या फ्यूचर वैल्यू को कैलकुलेट करने के लिए.